This is episode 8 of the KTS Reviews Creative Corner. I'm your host, Krista Stevenson, here with our awesome guest, Richie Norton. Richie,
hey,
thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. You're awesome. This will be fun.
No, this is great. So, I'm excited for today, guys.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. Okay.
Me too.
So, a quick introduction to Richie. There's a lot to say. He is an entrepreneur. He is a life coach, a motivational speaker, a best-selling author, strategic advisor, father, husband. He's been featured on Forbes, CNN, Huffington Post, all kinds of things. And we are really, really excited to have him here today. To start off, Richie, you talk a lot how stupid is the new smart. Smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit to our listeners?
No.
Please.
I'm just joking.
Please.
No, I'll try and make it super simple. But a lot of the times, the smartest ideas we have are the ones we're most scared of. And so, because of whatever reason we're scared of them, whatever it may be, we label them stupid. Like we say, that's a bad idea, or it's not a good idea for me, or it's not good timing. And so we push it away and say it's for someone else. And so, stupid is the new smart means when you embrace that concept, that idea, you actually are embracing maybe even your life's purpose in a lot of ways. Because a lot of times these ideas we have that we're scared of are inspired ideas. So everything from, I started doing like some research based on, the story of success. And I found that I even call it the 3 T's of stupidity. but like everything from the telephone to the Model T to Twitter were so-called stupid ideas that people said weren't going to work, that shouldn't be done, but turned out to change the world. And so, and on a large scale, there are a lot of stupid ideas, including the airplane and everything that turn out to be these great things. But even in our own little small lives, the things that we do, sometimes the most important things that we will ever do are the things that we are most scared of, and we label them stupid. So stupid is the new smart.
That is smart.
That's right.
I think a big question that comes up with that, and I know you've addressed this one before in your material, but how do you know if it really is stupid inspired or just stupid?
No.
That is like a.
There's so many stupid people out there.
It's true. I fall into that category sometimes. I'm not gonna lie.
I walk around here, in Hawaii, and everyone's like, "Oh, holy boy, so stupid." It's okay. It's okay to be stupid. There is, this unhealthy stupid word actually is a bad idea that can hurt you, right? That's a real thing. And there are things that we just label stupid that aren't inherently a bad idea. And so, right, the question is, how do you know?
Yeah.
The only honest answer is you don't. If it's going to hurt somebody or hurt yourself, it's probably not a good idea. But the way I measure it, because everyone measures things differently. And in fact, a lot of our happiness is based on how we measure it. Are we measuring it on how we look, or how much wealth we have, or how successful we are, or how many kids we have, or if we're married or not? Like, these are all things we measure. So if we measure our lives based on regret, the stupidest thing you can do as a negative stupid would be to not do the thing that you will regret not doing in the future. In other words, future regret is today's imperative. Let's say you're 80 years old. This is actually a Jeff Bezos thing from Amazon.
Right.
He was working on Wall Street, and he had this idea to sell books online. And he went to his boss, and his boss said, that's a great idea, but not for someone who already has a job.
Huh.
And Jeff Bezos said to himself, will I regret it when I'm 80? And he said to himself that he would regret not trying out this thing that's now known as Amazon. And so he quit his job in the middle of the year, which is a bad time to quit. Yeah. Because on Wall Street, you get your annual bonus at the end of the year. All these things. Got a loan from family, moved with his wife from New York to Washington, started Amazon from his garage. Now he's the richest person in the world, cover of Time magazine. Now, again, however you measure your life, at that moment in time, it was future regret that started Amazon. And so in our own lives, it's like, if a lot of people will spend their whole lives working up towards doing something, telling themselves, I need more time, I need more education, I need more experience, I need more money, may or may not be true. When they finally get there, they still end up learning they need more time, more education, more experience, and more money. And they never do it.
Yeah.
Whereas successful people, it's been proven, they start with whatever they have, where they are right now, and they figure it out. In fact, if it turns out to be a bad idea, like a really stupid idea, not a good
It's
one,
just their fault. Like, how does
it would be better to find out now and move on with your life than to wait 40 years and go, oh, dang.
Oh, yeah. Like, this thing I've been sitting on for 40 years. I should have just...
It's all about learning, and it's all about courage.
Uh-huh. Like, just kind of getting the guts to try it and be willing to accept that.
Yeah.
It might.
People love to learn because learning's great. It feeds your brain. It's exciting. And less people are willing to actually have the courage to go and try and actually do something with it. And they actually feel more comfortable inside their brain than they do living the reality. So if you try and live the reality, you actually get smarter because you learn what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And you can't expect every pivot to actually be the right thing, but you can expect that at every turn you'll learn something new.
Yeah.
And so you eventually start creating smart, stupid things because you know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So along with that, have you ever seen some maybe common pitfalls people might fall into when they start their stupid idea? If that makes sense?
Yeah. I know. I totally have. I'm racking my brain because there's like 1,000 stories coming to my mind right now that I could share with you. So let me just tell you one that happened actually today, literally today. So I'm talking to a financial advisor who just let go of his license on purpose so that he could basically educate more people without having to have the shackles of this license. Because when you're licensed, you can only say and do certain things.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. That's actually not the point. But when I was talking to him about how he's going to proceed, he actually has been stopping himself because he's entirely afraid, not that he doesn't know what to do or how to do it, but of how people will perceive him as he moves from being a successful person in one area to trying to become a successful person in another area. Most of the people that are super successful and wealthy and whatever they measure as success, they get on top of the mountain and they actually have a hard time doing the things they used to do that got them to the top because they actually have to go back down the mountain and start over. Or they can't figure out how to leap from one peak to the next one. Even if they can, because they are scared of what it will look like to everyone else when they fail.
Huh.
If they fail.
That's interesting because, they've already done the stupid thing and risked looking dumb.
Yeah.
And then they get up here.
It's true.
So they just forget what it was like to look stupid. Or is it because now they have this investment of, now I'm successful, I'm not supposed to have stupid ideas anymore?
Every situation's, a little bit different. But even like for you and me, like let's say that you wanted to go do something, but you're afraid of what your parents might think. This is a real thing your whole life. You know what I mean? And maybe it's not your parents, it's your peers. Or maybe it's someone on social media. Or maybe it's not even real, it's just in your head. But the perception of looking stupid prevents more people from being smart than anything else.
It really is like an ongoing thing. Like it's not just when you're starting out, even anytime it can pop up, just the fear of...
that's actually one of the more surprising things is that it's almost like we never grow up. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just like the
we do grow up, we do different things, but there's always these same issues in our psychology. And sometimes we forget what made us successful, and then we think there must be a better way, and maybe there is. But always the fear of how we might perceive, how other people might see us, stops us.
Wow.
Let me make it. So now I'll do these big speeches in front of all these people, and people will come up and talk to me. And one lady came up to me and she said, stupid was always a negative word in my family, as it is for everybody, right? And because my dad always called me stupid. And it was like not like a nice thing. Like it actually hurt her really deeply. And then she said, however, now that I've heard kind of a different way of thinking about it, she said, I actually see it as empowering. And that I can now go do these things that I wanted to do. Now, I'm just telling you as a quick story to say that as soon as you can change the way you think about vocabulary, you can literally change the way you approach life.
Right.
What's even more interesting is that as soon as somebody sees themselves becoming the person that they want to become, something else happens. As soon as you set a goal, you simultaneously see all the negative things or hard things that it's going to take to get there. So in the same time that we say, hey, go set a goal, we're also saying, go look at the 100 things you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
And then we stop ourselves. It
Right.
might not just be just looking stupid. It might be all the hard things, right? But successful people, they look at it differently. Instead of seeing these things as roadblocks or things to go around, they literally see these as signposts. These are the things I need to do.
Huh.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're I have this goal and all these things pop up, you go, thank you for the path.
Yeah.
Let's do this thing.
Uh-huh.
And if I don't like this path, maybe there is another path or not, but you look at it optimistically rather than negatively, and it helps you kind of make it happen.
All right, cool. So, how do you make the shift, like get that paradigm shift? If you're naturally prone to think of the negatives as like obstacles, like, oh, I can't do my idea because of this. How do you make that shift in your mindset?
There really is like, sometimes we are naturally prone to things. Sometimes it's just how we grew up and certain experiences that we've had, nature, nurture, all these things. But let me give the example of like the dad first. Again, that example, or anyone's family or someone. A lot of times we say I'm scared of this or I'm scared of that, and what it usually is a person specific, even though we might not have identified it.
Huh.
Or it's a thing, and we have to name it to tame it, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But with a person, instead of saying, I can't do this because I'm scared of what Sally will think of me, you can go to Sally and say, Sally, I've been thinking of doing this awesome thing. I'm actually not going to do it because I'm scared of what you're going to think of me. Now, no.
Have people done that?
No, people don't do that. But if I was here to do something, but I was scared of what you would think of me, and I said to you, Chris, I'm not going to do this because I am terrified of what you're going to think of me, what would you say?
Be afraid. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't say that.
You're like, what? Go back.
I would be so surprised.
Okay, so no, that's actually it. The person, the family member, most likely will say, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Go and do it. And they may or may not say, you have my permission or this or that. But it actually the fear evaporated because you addressed it head on.
Yeah.
No, the entire world, individuals have ideas, concepts coming their own from above, from wherever. They don't do it because of one thought.
Yeah.
But when they approach the thought and they make it evaporate by addressing it head on, they can move on with their lives. Okay. If you try to avoid fear, you actually create the problem that you were trying to solve.
Because you're so afraid of...
The only way to crush fear is to go through it.
All right. This has been an episode. I'm just kidding.
Can I ask you a question? So before we started, you said you found my stuff and you got online and took my 76-day challenge.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so and just so people know, the 76-day challenge is, my son lived for 76 days. He passed away, right? Yeah. And so I told myself I can set goals at any, right?
Yeah, a 76-day goal.
So when you took this I didn't know this, by the way, until 1 minute ago, right? I had zero idea. And that thing tries to take you through the process of coming with an idea, overcoming fears, and making it happen. So this is honestly me personally, and I guess people listening, it's just off the top, because I have no idea what you're going to say. What was your experience with that? Like, what did it do to you?
So, it's funny that you mentioned the fear thing, because that actually was a big part of finding, like, okay, I can do it. My experiences, and then I've written about it on the blog, so it's not too personal or anything, but I actually was bullied quite a bit growing up. Yeah, I was...
Let's go get him.
I got manpower now, but yeah, it was very long, and it was a very big part of my life. Started when I think the first memory I have, I was 3. And
wow.
Yeah, I was like, it's one of my first...
You can still remember, yeah.
I still remember, yeah.
Wow.
And I even asked my mom about it. I was like,
real.
Mom, did this happen? And she was like, yeah, how do you remember that?
No
like,
way.
It was big.
For real.
But yeah, it started when I was 3, went all the way, like, years and years and years. So I always kind of thought of myself as someone who was lesser than other people. Because, if you're on the same level, you shouldn't be going through X, Y, and Z, so to say. And
yeah.
I realized that was a big part of why I wasn't going for my goals, or like following through with these ideas that I really, really wanted and I cared about, because I just didn't think I was.
No way.
Yeah, I
so
didn't.
This is really real for you.
It was real, yeah. I'm like thinking, I didn't quite think of it as addressing it like not quite in the way that you worded it, just barely, but in that sense, I'm like, like I haven't been bullied for quite a bit, or when it happens now, I can just, like get out of my face. Like, yeah, but I realized that just that fear of, or constantly having to look over my shoulder, or just hearing like all the things that had happened,
That's amazing.
They happened a long time ago, but they would still like play on repeat in my head. And finally I said, we gotta turn it off. We gotta move on.
Okay, so sorry to flip the mic around for a second.
That's cool.
So wait, when this happened, and now that you've addressed it, did it help you start something, do something, reach a goal? Like, what did you do because of it?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, well, this podcast is one of the products of that. It just gave me, like, I don't know if courage is the right word, but just kind of the guts to say, like, all right, let's do this. I love to write, and that was when I finally started telling people, like, hey, I really want to be a writer. It was kind of like secret nerd dream. Like, I was too afraid to tell anyone. Yeah. When you get laughed at all the time, you don't want to add to it by saying yeah. But yeah, I started saying like, hey, I want to be a writer. I started listening to other writers, like reading their work more. I actually went to my first writing conference back in February because I'm like, this is real. This means a lot to me, and we're going to do this.
What?
So yes, people, the 76-day challenge, it is a thing. It is.
You're blowing my mind. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's just
thanks for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I have a client, he's also an author, and his name is Benjamin Hardy. And he's working on a new book about how you can change your personality. He says that we're always changing. Yeah. And I learned some things from him, like he's like, think about who you were 10 years ago. You were a very different person.
Oh, yeah.
I was too. We were all different people. Yeah. Different goals, different thoughts, different people in our lives. Everything was different 10 years ago. But when we think who we are now, we often think that in 10 years we'll be the same person. We think that our goals and who we are now will be the same in 10 years, when it's actually not true. We're going to be very different people in 10 years. The same way we're different 10 years ago, 10 years from now, we're going to go, who was that person? I don't even recognize them, right? So we're always changing. But we can, what he would say is, you can intentionally change your future by changing your past. And this doesn't make any sense. But what he's saying is, the story we tell ourselves about our past affects how we approach the present and the future.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And since we're just telling ourselves a story anyways, a lot of the things we remember may or may not be entirely accurate. Yeah. As we start clarifying what actually happened in our past or approaching them head on, it can actually change the way we behave today.
For sure.
I'm just saying that in a weird way, but you literally just described how that happened in your own life. So, congratulations.
But, no, yeah, for sure. So, that was the big thing for me. I'm like, I can't change what happened, how long it happened, why it happened, but all I can say is you can be a victim, lay down and cry, hope someone picks you up, or you can just dust yourself off and move on.
That's so true.
I love the whole, you can't change the past, but you can kind of, maybe dust off the lens, I guess,
That's a great image.
Say, let's look at it from this point of view instead.
You're right. That's exactly right. I love that.
But going back a little bit to maybe, let's say once you've invested, you started, you say, okay, I'm ready to move forward with my ideas. Okay. You overcome the fear. A common thing I know people struggle with is, I think you call it mission drift or something. You have the idea, but you can't support it with time or money. What are ways to deal with that?
Great question. So I'll address what mission drift means and then share some ideas of how you can overcome that. Right. So the concept of mission drift or mission creep is that you have a mission to do something, but as you go along it, because you can't do it, you start drifting off into doing other things that aren't on target, even though you might feel they're necessary. So, for example, a nonprofit might go in saying, I'm going to go save the children. Yeah. I'm just making something weird up. Okay, I'm going to go save the children. And as they go to save the children, they start realizing they have no money to do it. So now they do need money, of course, to do it. But now they're spending 90% of their time fundraising and 10% of their time helping the children. that would be mission drift.
Yeah.
It's not an exact science.
Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
So your mission starts creeping off the correct path towards other things instead of staying on target.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. So after I wrote The Power of Starting Something Stupid, and I started doing a lot of coaching and consulting around helping people, a lot of entrepreneurs started coming to me saying, well, Richie, that's cool, but how do I start mine? And I go, I don't know. How do you start yours?
Yeah.
And so I had to start focusing on business models and principles and teaching people how to be successful. And I realized I could quickly teach somebody how to make a sale and make money. But a lot of people would make sales and make money and still not be quote unquote happy. Mm. So I started figuring out they thought they wanted a successful business when what they actually wanted was freedom of time, location, flexibility kind of a thing, and money. Uh-huh. And so I quickly learned 2 people could start the same exact business, make the same amount of money, have the same exact impact, but lead incredibly different lives. If one builds it one way, he might have 0 time for his family. If another person builds it with a family-focused, time-centered, thought, they can still have all the time in the world that they want and have the same impact. So I learned that money and meaning can go together. So when people started telling me what they wanted, I would stop and go, yeah. Once you have that, let's pretend you do, then what? And then they'll say, oh, well, then I'll be able to go on vacation, or I'll be able to go this. And then, honestly, they were thinking in their mind years ahead. And I go, that's cool. Why don't we have you start doing those things you're saying you want to do with your wife and family today and build a business that supports that? And it completely changes their life. Like not in some philosophical way. It literally changes everything. So to avoid mission drift, to answer the question, you would need to start. It's actually a term in psychology for it. I don't mean to sound like big words or things.
Just break it down.
These are real things. But it's called final cause. Uh-huh. And final cause is, in my own words, is the success that comes after your success. So if someone can identify what they actually want after they think they're successful and start there and build a business around that, they won't have mission drift because they're already doing. They centered meaning and money together instead of separate, and they can have it immediately instead of years down the line. And I don't say that just randomly. I had a client who's a contractor. I don't know how to swing a hammer. I'm not a contractor. Yeah, kind of. And he's like, yeah, my plan is to blog for 2 years, and then I'm going to teach people how to be tradesmen and do all these things. And I was like, great, cool plan, man. And he's like, yeah, but my wife has MS. She's dying. Oh. I don't have very much time with her. So my goal is to do this so I can have more time with her. And I said, yo, what if you can do it in 4 to 6 months? And he said, can I? And I go, I don't know. Can you? Why don't we focus on what actually gets you there? In 2 years from now, what you're actually saying is somebody will believe that you're credible. And then you can teach them, and then you can live on the road and travel and speak and write books. He's like, yeah. I'm like, why can't you do that right now? It doesn't take 2 years of blogs. So sometimes we think the path
it has to be
is one way, but it's not. So he's like, yeah, cool. So I said, let's do it. And he hired me. And he didn't just do it in 4 to 6 weeks. He started making more money than he was making ever in 2 weeks.
Really?
Now we are
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Because all we did is
14 days.
Without getting detail, we focused on final cause. What happens right before that thing happens? We did that instead of building up to it. We just did it. We just did it.
Yeah.
It's not. I know it sounds surprising, and you're like, "Whoa, you did it with podcasting."
Yeah, but it's like
no. Let's flip it.
Okay.
I even wanted to do a podcast for years. I have not done a podcast. I've been on hundreds of podcasts. Yeah. My wife started a podcast. I have never done it. I've been preparing, learning, thinking, stressing, scared of the technology, right? I'm like, what are you using?
It's 3 programs and a mic.
And you just did it.
Yeah.
So you're a perfect example of someone that said, I'm just going to do it. And here you are. You know more about podcasting than I do.
What?
100%. Because you did it. And I didn't. I might have learned more about it over time. But you know more because you did. So this contractor guy, it's been actually a couple years since then. He now literally lives on the road with his family. He sent me a picture today with his family on vacation. Makes his money from doing coaching, consulting, teaching contractors how to train tradesmen and hire them. And he writes books. He doesn't swing a hammer anymore. He spends his time with his wife. That was his goal, and it's real. And so as we bring all this together, like most people don't think it's possible for them.
Yeah.
So they do nothing. But the first step is simple. Know what comes after success. Make that the goal. Start with an email to yourself, to a friend, to a family member, to someone you trust. Overcome the fear and do the first thing. So for you, do a podcast. For someone else, write a blog post. To make money, sell one thing to one person.
Yeah. Start from there and grow it. No, I love that.
I'm sure I am oversimplifying, but it really is that simple.
It can be simple. Like
it's
it
not
doesn't have to
it's
be.
not easy.
Yeah.
But it is that simple.
Like it doesn't have to be some 10-year grandmaster plan with 100 steps every day.
No,
kind of a thing.
Our heads mess the whole thing up.
Oh man, that's great. Okay, we're at the time where we need to start wrapping up.
No.
I'm sorry. Thank you for it. No.
You're a great podcaster, by the way. This is good stuff.
But so for closing remarks, we always like to ask our guests for some kind of recommendation they have. For you, just maybe like the first one that comes to mind. What is something that you would recommend to our listeners who are interested in starting their stupid idea or who would like to start, who have started and could use a little help along the way?
So this might sound weird, but it's simple. Go and do something different. Like literally go travel somewhere or read something or do something different than you've ever done before, way outside of your industry. The reason is because the more inputs that come into your brain, the more creative it can be to create new types of outputs. So when I started reading Muhammad Yunus, he's a microfinance guy. He helps the poor get access to money so he can create jobs. Literally, that idea helped shape the idea to start a Center for Entrepreneurship at BYU Hawaii, which then helped. I worked with President Shumway and Brother Gibson, and we did a cashmere with a company in Mongolia with a girl from BYU Hawaii. And then we used that story to legitimize a need for the Center for Entrepreneurship. And then years went by. Eventually, the Willises endowed it. And then eventually, people started getting hired, and it was run by missionaries. Like, that all happened from reading a book.
Wow.
As a student at BYU Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And it was because I was reading something different. And so what I would say is, like, look for ways to become more creative by having new, exciting, more experiences that make you feel alive. And if you do that, and then you take that creativity and put it to use, you can literally create sustainable things, organizations or products or nothing, just your own happiness. That's it. Go do something new.
Try it from there. All right. Oh man, thank you so much, Richie.
Let me tell you one more people can remember.
Okay.
So in the book, I have the acronym START: serve, think, ask, receive, and trust. Mm-hmm. And that really is the formula. Go and serve somebody and help them out. Thank them for the opportunity for helping them. Don't expect anything in return from them. You actually, asking people sometimes can hurt. You want to ask appropriately. Like the way there's mission drift, there's also mission matching. You want to match your mission to other people's missions. Mm. So if you can help them, they'll help you. Serve, think, ask, be open to receiving help, and then trust that process can actually work. It always starts with serving others and not being selfish. Being self-aware, serving others, magic happens.
Love it.
You're amazing, by the way. You do that. You do that. So
oh, man.
You're super cool.
Okay. This has been episode 8 of the KTS Reviews Creative Corner. Y'all got your reviews, and if you haven't been inspired yet, you might want to listen to this again and pay attention this time. Anyway, all of y'all, go get creative.